that work, right?
Yeah. Well, it was crazy. I said, listen, that's a lot of money for a pass or a fail.
Okay.
Oh, okay. It's okay.
The problem is they could not hear from the beginning, so the board secretary could not hear. from
Oh, no.
6 to 7.
So she's gonna have to
But
go.
But we do have those for transcription,
The
at
tape.
least, you know.
Yeah, it was recorded.
Okay, then she can work off of that. We have not yet gotten to a,
Stenographer that can.
well, we haven't gotten to public comments or things like that,
Yes,
where we would
yes.
have invited.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for that.
but we should acknowledge that we understand that the audio was not going out. We have recessed. Once we
Yeah.
learned that,
No decisions were made.
and no,
Right.
oh, well, yes. they're just-
No, yeah, I mean, other than the agenda,
Yeah,
no
other
decisions
To
were
accept
made.
the agenda.
No substantive.
Yeah.
We've listened to a couple of reports.
Yeah.
People can listen
The
to.
meeting was open to the public. We didn't know that was a technical
Right.
difficulty.
But
And once we were certain that they can hear us, we can
reconvene, yeah.
And they can't hear us?
They can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay,
Also, just, everything is recorded in the room. It's being broadcast. You just couldn't hear it over Zoom or on YouTube.
okay,
Okay. Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
So
No matter
we
recess.
will reconvene from the technical clarity issue.
So may I say
Yes.
my sentence now?
Sure.
Thank you. So again, I've given a lot of thought to this and I keep thinking about it and I listen to the meetings and I'm reading the minutes and the stuff and I'm thinking, this is to me, it's like we were sending Katie off. She's going across the ocean to go to college. She was 17 when she left. We were just like this, and yet when we gave her that freedom, she blossomed. She just turned into this beautiful young lady that is experiencing such a great thing. And we didn't hold her back and say, no, you can't go because that's way too far. And we're too afraid that that's not going to work. And we need to still take care of you. And that's how I think of HCOREI. Are we holding them back by saying, we think that you need, without my asking, do you need, or what do you need? And I'm sorry, I just had to make that analogy because that's how I kept thinking about it. Are we holding them back? Could they be bigger and greater than what they are already doing
See,
if they weren't under us?
It's a good point.
it's a very valid, point. I think, and we can continue the discussion around this probably at the retreat and see what the result is of, the town's, review of this charge change from, HCOREI, because it's coming from the committee, this request.
Mhm.
So the other thing that it brings to mind, everything that you said, has merit. And yet, I think the points that were made about credibility, strength, and protection comes from the two municipalities.
Yeah.
And that is from the town and from the school district. And this growth that we've seen, is clear. It's a lot clearer for the committee as far as its relationship with the district, because it's been very actively involved, in the educational side of their work, which is fine. And I think as it continues to grow and starts to look at its role on the municipal side of its work, the town will gain as much benefit as we have from the relationship that we have. But it's been we've offered them a lot of independence.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not like we say, you need to come in and report every month, or blah, blah, blah. I mean, we have our liaisons, we
Right.
know what's going on. They share the minutes with all of the members. Tracking the activity, we've got a pretty good picture, of what's going on. I think, we've embraced their work and it'll grow as it does. I think there's a certain amount of security because if they came to us with that question,
Mhm.
HCOREI had said, we're thinking we'd like to just go off on our own. Then, there becomes that, okay, we have to have that discussion, I think, as a board and as the select board would have to as well. And then, this funding thing and, it changes a lot of that because not that it would say that we don't have the responsibility, to do, let's say, an allocation, to an entity that we feel strongly about. But in the past, the school district hasn't been approached by outside entities
Mhm.
for those, because we don't list those grants, like they do in, the on the municipal side. So there's all of those relationship things.
Yeah. And I think I do share Nancy's concerns.
Mm.
I think going forward, if it stays in the current structure, I think personally, I will recuse myself from any votes that make specific budgetary recommendations from the town, and I'll suggest it to other members, but that's up to each member's individual discretion. Two, I do think a more formal communication link once or twice a year is very important. And three, I think we have to be prepared to be called out if we're not doing what we're supposed to, even though it is a quote unquote committee of the joint boards. The participants feel very passionate about a very important subject. So if we're not doing what we should be doing, we need to be ready for a committee to report back and say, come on, guys, pick it up, or whatever the term is.
Well, it's no different than the energy committee or any other committee, like if a group of specialists with a particular topic area of interest are seeing that, maybe, you guys need to get your act together a little more here in this direction or whatever, we would hope that we would be called out.
And as long as that's understood, I think that's the important point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
Is
Which is
that
great.
part of the impetus for maybe wanting to go solo or wanting to get away from the boards? Is that they can?
Well,
voice-
let's
I'm
not-
just trying to figure out.
I don't know of any particular impetus on the committee.
Okay.
I've not heard any discussion.
Yeah, so I think we got to keep it in context.
Yeah.
I think some of my concerns is just that some of these ambiguities in the governance structure, and would it be better served as its own 501c3 type thing?
No, because I could understand that. I'm just trying
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
I don't know if they have more, say, if they're under the auspices of the school board and the select board, or less if they're, it's sort of half a dozen of one, six of another in my mind, because in some ways they could be ignored more if they weren't under.
Absolutely.
You
and I
know,
mean,
so it's like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to weigh this out as you're talking about it, figuring out.
But as long as we are clear that we're adults and can take constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Get it all the
As a
time.
person.
Yeah, exactly.
Either way, they have the
Yeah.
right to speak up. I just felt like
Yeah,
if they
that's
were not under the school board, select board, it might be easier for a different board, not you, but a different board 10 years down the road. Go, we don't have any allegiance to them.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want,
Right.
but we're the
It could
board.
happen.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it both ways going, huh.
Yeah, it was just a
And you always
question
have to
in my
think-
mind.
You know, you
It's
think
worth the
down the
discussion.
road when
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not the five of you who sort of were in on creating it, and what could happen.
So could I ask that this be tabled for the moment or brought back after some revision in terms of clarification of the issues identified about exactly how the nomination and then approval process will work?
Yes,
Um, and I don't know if it's a package or not. As I said, I have some concerns about the voting portion of it, just because of my experience with my daughter being on this board. At the same time, other parts of it I don't have a problem with, so if it's a take it or leave it thing, it's gonna be a little bit harder for me to prove the parts I don't have a problem with.
sorry, please.
No, it's, that was the,
Are you proposing then that you would like to, do we want to have a discussion about voting, students who are voting, and make a recommendation back to HCOREI for what we would like to see?
I'm not irretrievably opposed to it. I just have some questions about whether there are the right trade-offs of benefits and costs associated with giving the students voting. As I said, not being voting gives you a certain amount of freedom and removes a certain amount of accountability, because all you're doing is providing your input, which can be, if your input is good, quite a bit of influence, but it's not the same thing as you're now being held accountable and people can directly attack you, which is all too likely to happen in our social media world. But I'm not convinced I'm right either.
Yeah,
It's a concern I have.
I hear that, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. It is not something that I had really considered before, even when I was part of this conversation. That being said, I will say that it's a pretty powerful thing to say to the town. In contrast, it's a powerful thing to say to the town if even two of your high school students feel that XYZ should happen within our town, or XYZ needs to be shown or said. So it gives them a power to be able to create change in their community as well. So there is a lot to consider.
See, voice, it's the more critical and salient piece of all of this is youth voice. Been a proponent of this for years, helped, get students on the State Board of Education, boards around the state and other entities, and the youth council. And they have direct access to the government that would just passed. So that being said, it's about that ability, and I mean, we're already getting submissions of names from all over the state of young people that want to be on that group. And so we're fortunate to have a very incredible number of engaged students, in our community and in the state as a whole, that are interested in so many different things, and having that voice, is critical, because they're being listened to. So.
And obviously, I still stand for, I understand your position, Peter, but I think there can be a couple compensating them. One, before the student is put before each board, it's explained to them that this is a potential that could happen, so they can make an informed choice. And two, I think sometimes students are less concerned about that kind of thing than we are, because one thing we are doing right is raising students who are not afraid to vocalize opinions that may not necessarily be generally accepted. And if we want to promote democracy, that's part of it, unfortunately. So I think there is that risk, but I think it's a calculated risk that's worth taking.
Thank you for the discussion. I appreciate it.
So, personally, if we could have this resubmitted
With the clarity.
with the clarity,
Yeah.
that will also give me some time to mull this in the back of my mind.
Okay.
And consider your very cogent points.
Okay, I mean, I think, and we also, it's gotta go with the select board and they'll
Mhm.
have,
Yeah,
so I think that's very workable.
Mm.
I mean, unfortunately, this should have been presented long ago and I have to accept responsibility for that because I've been distracted, but,
little thing called tax season.
and other things, yeah.
But I think it, you know, I really appreciate the conversation and the discussion, because like with everything else we're doing, you know, this is an evolving piece as well. You know, and, you know, we think about where we started, you know, with our youth members, you know, on the school board, you know, years ago, and where we ended up this year. And so how proud we all are of their participation and the work that goes into it. Because see, there's some mentoring and tutoring that's going on a regular basis behind the scenes that people don't realize, you know, from Tom and Roy and Kathy and others, you know, the principal of the high school, you know, the guidance department, you know, so like you've got this whole team of folks that are helping, you know, those young people like grow to the next level, you know, and that, geez, that is incredible, you know, as well. So they're gonna have some great resources, you know, to bring to bear besides their own voice. You know, they're gonna have their other 100+ you know, students in a class, depending on which class they're in. They're gonna have, you know, just the student council, there's just, you know, so many pieces behind, you know, those young, you know, superstars. So great discussion.
Would you need a motion of some sort or? just-
Well, essentially, if the agreement is we have to rework it, I think it would be premature to have.
Yeah, I just-
Right, you
Yeah.
don't need it. You're just tabling it.
Yeah,
So-
where you've requested that we.
Come back.
Yeah, come back with some revised language and give you a chance to consider your concern.
A little more clarity,
Mhm.
you know, because it is an amendment to the charge, you
Mhm.
know, and that's an agreed upon charge by the two entities.
And maybe the committee should just consider the safety thing, because it wasn't something they might have considered, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. And I mean, one of the other things is always giving and ensuring the student representatives understand that if they think it's potential, they can recuse themselves or abstain from voting.
Right.
And that right there, then,
It's one of those things that you don't sometimes know what a problem it is until you do something, and then you're like,
Right.
I've got 400 people in my email threatening me, or, you know,
Yeah.
20 people
Yeah.
call my parents' house.
Yeah.
It's, you know, so it's just
Mhm.
something you really want
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
I appreciate the conversation. Because sometimes you do hit those trigger points,
Mhm.
you know, you've all experienced that, I've experienced, it's like, whoa, that's a little close. So
And
You know,
this
someone-
particular conversation
Gets you when you walk out of the building.
will do that. You know, this particular conversation in today's environment will do that. It's not so much can it, it's when it happens.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the other part. So we'll continue to keep our kids safe, and that's our job.
Yep.
And, you know, the rest of the discussion will continue as we go.
My thanks to all of you for listening to my thoughts.
Well, I think that's why our board does reasonably well together. So, I saw Hava and Russ took copious notes, so we're really good. So next piece is the board training and summer retreat.
Yeah, I just put that to keep it fresh in our minds. I mean, obviously our work is around the ends and the indicators. I didn't know if anyone had any other thoughts. I did revise the work plan based on your suggestions at the last meeting. So that's in your packet to look at. It's not something that has to be perfect tonight, but if you take a look and at the retreat, we can kind of shift things around, or maybe at least have a few minutes to talk
Right.
about the work of the year at the retreat, so I kind of know what we're doing when.
So,
The
so as,
engagement meetings are on there. We've tried to get a lot on that document.
so as we prepare the agenda for the training, we'll make sure that we leave enough time, for discussion of.
It'd be really
plans,
nice to get the engagement meetings, or at least the ones you know about in August.
Okay.
Because that's
You know,
what we
on
did.
the-
That's
That's what we
at
did
the
before.
last one.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a
You had talked
logistical question.
We talked a little bit about like moving the end reports, so that'd be something I really
Yeah.
need to kind of,
In the various documents, some say the 17th, some say the 24th.
Well, yes, and the reason, I don't know where the 17th honestly came from. I started looking at the calendar, it's like, that's not on a night the board usually meets, so should it be on the 4th? Yeah, and I don't know if that helps or hurts you with your concern about college drop off. Certainly the 17th is fine, but again, it's gonna throw some people in the community off a little, because it's the third Wednesday. instead of-
Okay, it will conflict with an HCOREI.
Yeah, it's like, I was like, where did that come from? And the first is a little too early, so that's why I said the 27th.
24th.
24th.
Sorry.
Please, no more
Don't give us a
confusion.
number.
Jeez, sorry. 24th.
And after Peter's counsel, I found out I have September 1st is my day.
I actually think the 24th is after the drop off, so we will have. I think it would work. Check.
The 17th was sort of early. That's why I started looking at this. Where did I get that date from? So thanks, Russ, for bringing that. I meant to bring that up. And the time too. I guessed at the time in the past, we've moved the meeting start up because we've done some conversation and a light dinner and then finished. So
Yes.
if 4:30 is doable, that's great.
So the 21st is the move in for my daughter and her higher education institution.
Mhm.
So by the 24th, I will be done.
Sounds a little better.
4:30.
4:30 is good.
And it seems like the stars are aligning.
Let's see.
Scary.
Your office, where we're gonna have it, your
That's
office.
up for grabs too, whatever the board wishes.
No, that's fine. It's accessible.
That's where we used to go.
Yeah. Well,
It's nice, it's
It's
comfortable.
accessible.
Yeah.
It's- And that's the biggest thing. It's accessible. And
It doesn't cost
we
anything.
get- Well, and we get a lot of work done.
Yeah.
Because we have
And
traditionally. And even if we needed to do some group work, we have space. That's the other instance. We've done that before as well. So,
We haven't always, since it's a retreat, it's a different format, we haven't had CATV or
Mhm.
board secretary. We can go either way, it's the board's desire.
Well, we did a couple of times.
Sometimes we have,
Yeah.
sometimes it's nice to have the secretary that sort of record stuff so we don't lose sight of goals or big brainstorms that we've had.
it's in there.
I would personally prefer to have CTV there, because if we're going to then win the hearts and minds of the teachers and staff and the community, full transparency
Yeah,
type
we have
thing.
nothing.
And if you're concerned about demonstrating board commitment, the fact that we're working like that might be a way to start that
Sure.
process. I'm not strong either way, I just think that
Well,
would,
we've done it before. That's why.
We
you
have,
know,
right.
yeah.
So that's why it doesn't.
We've sort of done half and
Recess
half.
for.
Yeah, right.
We've done a school board head and then meeting and then canceled and went into our retreat. The
Yeah.
retreat
Mhm,
was private.
Mhm.
Given some of the exercises we've done in the past around trying to work on collegiality and things, it was probably better not to have an audience.
Sometimes it's hard
Yeah,
on CATV's behalf. It's very hard to have a video and put it out there.
yeah.
A retreat format, you have multiple people talking, less formality. So that, I know in talking to Samantha, that gets a little bit crazy.
A little bit scary.
Little
I mean,
clunky.
you can still record it and show it, and people get what they get,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point. I just-
yeah,
Put
it
it out
does
there
get
for
a little
discussion.
awkward.
But that's why we've done it, before, like multifaceted. As far as recording.
Yeah.
and not recording. Okay, board committee reports, updates.
And again, I put this on there just as a catch-all.
Mm.
You're on one of the committees and you haven't met or nothing's changed since the 8th when we last met. Don't feel obligated to report out for the sake of reporting out. It's really, I don't know what's transpired with all of you between our last meeting and this one. Some update for the summer. Like I know facilities has met, there may be some new information. There may be something you're working on for this summer that you want the board and the community to know. And if there's nothing, don't feel obligated.
As you dropped the hint.
Oh, you got that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I did. Yes, the facilities committee has met since the last time we met, and we're making good progress. And one of the theories that we're coming up with is, and a lot of what we're talking about, and it's all very tentative right now, but there's some general themes that certain projects seem to lump together logically. Like if we're doing work on the gym, that might be a chance to do something else type thing. So we're developing those categories and we're coming up with some cost estimates or some dartboard projections, just so we can have an idea of the size and scope, because we need to get a flavor for how big the project may end up being and determine whether we need to scale back or whether we can push forward with it. I mean, there's been a lot of fruitful discussions. I mean, there has been discussions of potential acquisitions and uses of buildings. But one of the other things that's really been a focus is not just thinking about what we need today, but thinking about the use 10, 20 years from now so that the taxpayers get the money. And that's also been the theme. There's certain things that if we're working on the gym, that might be a chance to do the sprinkler work that needs to be done. So we anticipate it may not be hooked up or whatever the right terms is, but the bare bones is there. So when the system's ready to go, it's just plug and play type thing. So we're really trying to think about how best to maximize any dollar spent for the benefit of the community and our students.
And that's very forward thinking. And, I appreciate, that, because that's in keeping with, our practice, having a multi-year maintenance plan is, let's say, a foundational piece. Having the engineering supporting that plan is another, integral piece, to that. And so it fits within our way of doing our work, and looking out for the best interests of our owners, the community members. So kudos, for that, maintaining that vision.
I'll jump in right behind Russell then.
Yeah.
We finally got to, the food program got started on Monday, so I don't have any numbers to give you because we just had 3 days now of doing it. It was, the state threw a monkey wrench into our gears there. And so we had to back down for one more week, but it's going very, very, very well. I'm over there every day and his daughter's telling me exactly what to do and when to do it. And she does it so sweetly. But it's really, really going very, very well. And I'm very proud of it. Again, very, very proud of that program that we've got going. Also, there is won't be a committee maybe, but it's coming under HCC. We're talking with Homeland Security. I've mentioned before the fact that that I have concerns about the trafficking of both boys and girls, men and women, sex trafficking, and it is in our area. And so I had got with Homeland Security, and they're going to be, I've already got, HCC already has a ton of brochures. We're going to be showing it to Tom before school starts. I've got it in English and in Spanish. And if I have any other languages that we need it in, they've got a whole list that I can get all the information on. Some of them are information, little brochures that you can hand out like we handed out some at the park the last weekend. We've got little tags that will fit on keychains that has the 888 number. If you have if you're in trouble, or if you know of a friend that's in trouble, or you suspect something's going on, you can pick up, then you can have it with you at all times. There's another one that fits in the wallet. They're laminated. It's got all the information on it. What HCC would like to propose to this board, to Tom and to Roy, is that that Homeland Security will come in and do some trainings. We want to open it up to the public so that parents, and especially the older children who will understand what's going on, the younger children will not, but they are involved. Especially for the older children, like middle school and above, to realize these are some of the things that are happening to you that you don't even know. You're being groomed without even knowing you're being groomed. Exactly. We want parents to be aware of that. And I especially want all of our teachers to be able to have that information and that training. And it would be coming not from us, not from HCC, but we are the ones that are bringing it into our community. And we would, I would like to, maybe later in the summer, we can get our officer in here and he can make a presentation to the board if that is permissible. And you can ask a lot of questions and then make a vote at that time. Is that how you would do this kind of thing?
Not necessarily.
Okay, but that's what I would like to do, and that's what that's what Hartford Community is working for right now.
My thought would be, if we could put that on the agenda for the retreat. Okay, and then we can take some time to talk about how we might want to access that as a partnership, and possibly do one of our community engagement meetings. Because it's more in that realm,
Right.
From our perspective as a board, because we really don't direct the superintendent.
Right,
You know,
right.
in the performance of his duty, but we support,
Yes.
you know, the district.
Yes.
So in support of that, showing our commitment to our children and their safety, you know, maybe having that joint, you know, communication as one of our early, because, you know, we don't start budgeting ones and we don't start the other ones. We're looking at probably another DE&I one, but you know, this, well, I'll
Yeah,
leave that to you
awareness
guys.
training, getting
Yeah.
the word out.
Yeah.
That's a huge issue.
Yeah.
In the schools, and the whole idea of these things.
Mhm.
And pictures of each other or others. And precursor to maybe some sex trafficking or at least to some
Oh,
really
yeah.
inappropriate.
It's,
Just like for us to be
The
very
big issue.
proactive.
And we have some really good curriculum in our district around online safety, about predator awareness, right? It starts in the middle school more.
But the thing that the board could really help with is the community and parents, the adult awareness.
you got it.
So we do a lot with the kids and what gets home to the parents, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure if a lot of adults in the community are aware of how big an issue that is.
I bet
now.
not.
I bet not,
Well, I know,
yeah,
I know.
no,
they-
because I didn't know it.
I didn't either, so.
See, the thing is, I know they don't,
Mhm.
because our committee has jurisdiction over it, you know, and we supply the funds for all of that work,
Mhm.
you know, through the AG's office, through the Department of Public Safety. So, you know, it's like, wow, it's a scary, you know, thing, because, you know, kids are our business. So when we see them, you know, being assaulted the way that they are, it's, yeah, so.
Okay, well, I apologize if I overstepped my bounds.
No,
But-
you brought it on the table. Now we've got it, you know, it's on the
We're gonna
agenda.
Work and figure out how it
Yeah.
fits in and where.
Okay, I didn't want to overstep my bounds, but I just,
It isn't that at
It's
all.
just-
you know.
that's
This-
fine.
this
Yes,
is a
okay, good.
critical-
Good.
It's a critical safety issue.
Yes.
And the point that when I was watching, you know, faces and you Russ said, you know, and you said, you know, and all of us, you know, until we're immersed in it, you know, at some point, some way, you go, what?
It's a
Yeah.
big issue in the schools.
Yeah, so getting, you know, to that point where we can help, you know, and I look at it as helping, you know, broaden the understanding of our parents, you know, and other community members
Yes.
of what's going on, because like you said, I mean, we took witness testimony during the course of some bill drafting. And, you know, some of the comments, you know, I didn't work, this was going on, and you just, scary stuff.
It's
So,
very scary to me.
anyways.
Thank you very much.
Any other thoughts, you know, policy? you guys are
Policy
working on?
committee is on abeyance until Roy and Tom have a moment to propose some time for us to meet past the end of the
Yeah.
school year, so they got some
Right.
free time to breathe.
Yeah. Little breathing space. And Russ is, we're working on a finance committee meeting.
I have one thing.
Yes.
Since I know we've already talked quite a bit about HCOREI, but I do just want to bring up one thing. Since we've had this great discussion about independence of HCOREI, one of the things that is in the charge is if you go to section 6, part G, it says the collection and release of available public data such as the average citizen has the ability to view, compare, and understand the collected data. Basically just talking about one of the things that we talk about all the time, which is access to information about the town, looking to work with the town to help get all the policies online, accessible, and available for anybody to be able to see. It has been one of the goals that the HCOREI group has been talking about quite a bit. One of the things that has come up as an idea, and I just bring it to the table to say this is something that's being talked about and thought about, is that we could have a need in our town for a communications person, someone who helps everybody in all the different departments work on getting out official information so that when there's an emergency in town, there's one official voice, somebody's letting the public know. Nobody has to, the onus doesn't have to be on emergency services to get it out. That has been proposed that, or asked, or we're thinking about, what would it look like if it was someone that was partly responsible to the town and partly responsible to the school district. And the example that was brought up was when we had an emergency at the middle school and people in the community wanted to know about it, but only parents knew about it. And it would have been nice if within our town, we had an official mechanism to get information out that was uniform and true. So I just bring that to the table to say, this is something that's being talked about and wondered.
Well, you know, and not to default everything to the tree. But being, you know, the nature, you know, of that discussion, it's a budgetary and a administrative, you know, component. By putting it on the retreat agenda, that gives Roy, Tom, and our new assistant superintendent an opportunity to give a little thought to that, you know, of how a relationship would work, you know, with an entity that's shared, you know, doing community information. So.
Yeah, I don't
Just
think
for-
the committee's at all ready to make a formal request of any kind.
No,
or
no,
recommendation.
we've
This
had,
isn't the first
we- no,
time
no.
this has come up before. So
No,
it's
no,
unusual.
we've had this discussion for years. You know, before Tom even got here,
Mhm.
we had one. We had a person, and that person basically almost got run out of town. You know, but anyways, that being said, you know, anytime that discussion comes up, the reason why, you know, we can ever push back on it personally, you know, is I'm in full understanding how important information is. And, you know, like some of the ideas you and Russ have been working on, you know, as our communications folks, you know, and, you know, public engagement, you know, this falls within that discussion, you know, so anyway, Russ.
I'm just gonna go on record and saying, I think a joint employee is a bad idea.
It presents lots of budgetary
Yeah,
issues
It
that both
does.
sides have to agree. It presents some real management issues. And you've got to report to two different people who have entirely different views of what's important, what isn't, what should be talked about. But it can be very difficult, which is one of the reasons that it has been proposed many, many times. And it has not gotten terribly far, despite the fact that in some ways, a public information office would be a really good thing.
Yeah,
One of-
I'm gonna go so far as it won't work. I mean, I agree there should be a mechanism and that can work.
Well,
I agree with the mechanism idea. A joint employee ain't gonna work.
I would say that
I agree with you.
I have more faith in that. And I have seen really interesting structures happen.
Okay,
I'm an optimist though.
fair enough. And you're entitled to your. But no, I respect you, Hava, for being an optimist.
Thank you, Russ. I appreciate that.
Oh, I have lots of ideas. I don't know if now is the time to share them. But we
Yeah.
have lots of conversations about this in the past, so. I mean, there are ways to get around the concerns that are mentioned and have someone consistent between the town and the school, like a contracted service where there's X number of hours for the school, there's X number of hours for the town.
Yep.
It's not an employee, it's a contracted service.
Yep.
You know, from a media, you know, professional,
Right,
that's, you know,
yes.
something like that. It's not so embedded in.
These models exist in the world. Russ.
I said employee. I did very specifically say employee.
I think an employee is difficult.
Right.
You get to.
That's the
But
trickiest.
Yes.
part.
when Brandon
That's-
was here, Brandon and I had several this is going back a ways, but we had conversations about marketing. Public,
Yeah, yeah.
public, you know, so we had talked quite a bit about that.
We've wanted actually,
Yeah.
many times, there's been conversations about, we really need to sell the district.
Yes,
It's not quite the same thing as what you're talking about, but it's related to that.
it's related.
Yeah,
And
it's
Yeah.
under that.
How do
umbrella.
we do that? How do we justify the money and the time and so forth? So
Yeah.
Well,
The
I-
joint positions get really
Yeah.
difficult because someone's gonna get more than someone else. It's just hard.
See, that's where, you know, and I understand what you said, Russ, you know, about that piece, but I think as far as our situation, it's probably worth at least reviving the discussion around that entity in some form. Do we look at possibly putting an RFP out? You know, is there, you know, a consulting firm that does this kind of work? You know, kind of like what we did when we did our DE&I
Yeah, that's
evaluation,
exactly what
You
I
know,
was thinking. Where
you
it
know,
was,
where we say, this is what we're looking for, and you'll give us a quote, tell us what you'll do, you know, and are you gonna do just marketing? Can you do this, do that, whatever.
Because it's such an important topic, I will attempt to keep an open mind.
Well, you noticed I didn't say it had to be a joint. You know, but I think, like you said, this is such an important, you know,
Yes.
topic,
Mhm.
communication, and then the piece that we have to deal with every year is getting information out to our owners around
Mhm.
what we are doing, what's going on, and
it is the topic that lends itself to a real professional. And sometimes
Yes.
when you're trying to get an employee to do that, it makes it more difficult. And that might have been part of the problem in the past,
Yeah.
but if you had a firm that did, you know, marketing and, you know, public announcements, very professional done.
Mhm.
And it was a contracted service with a professional organization. That could have some potential. I think.
yeah,
And if it was a share, it wouldn't be a share, it would be you get X, he
That's
get
right.
X.
That's right.
right, you know, and if they want to utilize, you know, that concept, go for it, you know.
Organizations split staffing all the time where a position is created that's half-time. From two different organizations that share the same person with the intent that it's one single person, right? We can see that anywhere in the Upper Valley.
I'm not disputing that.
Will be creative in our discussions, not to say that it's something I even support yet, but to say, we'll walk you there, Russ.
But okay. Oh, wait a minute, I promised to keep an open mind, so, yes, okay.
Yeah, you did say that.
I did say that, so I will revise my comment and apologize.
Oh. This is great. See, that's a sign of our ability to move forward
That's right.
as we play in our sandbox. So that should bring us to public comments.
Two attendees, or one attendee that's not Sherry Torrey, no hands up.
Any board members want to make a, you know, anything or administration?
Okay.
Cool. Sounds like we're in good shape. Just quickly, as we think about some of our growth discussions, I did happen to have a conversation with the executive director of Twin Pines, and, you know, just about the legislative session. And one of the interesting things coming up is there's 21 units of housing coming in on Prospect Street. And so that's going to have an effect on us. Probably White River School, you know, because it will be family, you know, like housing.
Can you remind us where Prospect Street is?
It's over where the.
Across from Listen,
Oh, it
Listen,
is,
yeah.
okay.
probably in that vacant lot.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
all right, perfect.
So it'd be handy, they can just walk right down the way.
Yeah, it's a great place.
Don't have to worry about an extra bus or anything.
No, that's a great location.
So-
Creek don't rise.
That's a pretty big
Yeah.
creek.
That, the high water mark, wow, that would be really something. The river got that high. I'm glad I'm living up on that. So I guess I'll just think positive that way. The next. The consent agenda,
Yeah, meeting minutes.
meeting minutes, regular meeting 6/8/2022.
I do, even though the board gave me the authority to hire since we had another meeting, I thought it appropriate to bring the hire since that meeting to this meeting. So we have two people that have met with me and are done. Shell Wallace, science teacher at the high school, and Kira Johnston, a science teacher at the middle school. No resignations or retirement.
Cool,
All right.
thank you.
All right, I'd like to move that we accept the consent agenda with our welcome to the new members of the community.
Cool. I'll second. So we have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. So, our meeting, oh, Russ, you volunteered.
I have volunteered,
That's
yes, unless anyone wants the pleasure. I'm trying to do my Tom Sawyer. All right, at the end of the board meeting, each board member and the superintendent or appointed evaluator for the meeting completes this monitoring form. The responses are shared and a discussion is held on the areas that need improvement. The chair collects the completed forms to use in the board's monitoring reports. Board was prepared for the meeting. I'll give us a satisfactory. Board's time was spent on ends, not means, since we talked about the ends a lot. Yes, satisfactory. Each board member was given an opportunity to participate. Yes. Board treated all persons with courtesy and fairness. Yes. Board adhered to Robert's Rules of Order as appropriate and needed. Yes. Board adhered to its adopted governance style. It emphasized outward vision. It encouraged diversity in viewpoints. It exercised strategic leadership, not administrative detail. It maintained distinction between board and staff roles. It used collective decision-making. It looked to the future. And I'm going to say satisfactory.
Cool. And we do have a need for a labor relations executive session and evaluation of a public employee.
Both. Okay. Then I would like to move that pursuant to Vermont statutes annotated section 3131, actually A1, that we find that a meeting, executive session meeting to discuss labor relation agreements on employees and the evaluation of a public employee is necessary, and that we also choose to enter into that executive session.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and then a second to go into executive session under our required statute. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.